watching Carlton Television. Now, just ahead of our movie premiere, Bean, we join Trevor MacDonald for a news update.
Good evening and welcome to this ITV news special on the Selby rail crash. Tonight, the death toll from the tragedy stands at 13. Another 10 people are in a serious condition in hospital after the collision between an intercity express and a freight train in North Yorkshire early this morning. Tonight, investigators are still looking for more bodies in the mangled wreckage. From the scene of the crash, Colin Baker has the latest.
In cold silence, they gently carried away the dead. 13 times so far they've made this journey across the field from wreckage so twisted and mangled, it was little short of wonder that so many were able to walk away. Two trains had collided at a closing speed of nearly 200 miles per hour. And often in blizzard conditions, pockets of fire and rescue officers and paramedics search for those still alive. Necessarily slow this operation, there were successes. Early morning commuters trapped by torn metal were eventually cut free and taken to hospital. And the cause of such carnage and destruction? A car and trailer slewing off a motorway onto the track in front of the Intercity Express, which then collided with the goods train travelling in the opposite direction.
How can a road vehicle get onto our railway? And that's a terrible thing to have happened. But our train hit that Land Rover, got derailed, but stayed upright, which is what it's meant to do, and carried on down the tracks, went through a pair of points, stayed upright, but bumping along, and then got hit by the freight train coming the other way. One of these just terrible, terrible, tragic consequences. Three things go wrong, and we've now got this terrible loss of life.
The goods train was taking around 1,500 tons of coal to a nearby power station. Weight and speed which caused some of the passenger carriages to almost disintegrate. One coach flattened. No chance of survival here. Nearby, another standing without wheels, 100 yards from the track. The emergency service's major incident procedures were put into operation, the injured taken to 5 hospitals, the walking survivors talking of their escape.
There seemed to be something underneath the carriage, and it was tearing it along, and then all the windows shattered, and the seats got torn out.
It jolted and shuddered, and then the lights went out, and I think we came off the track, and when we came to a stop, it filled up with fumes, you know. So my first thought was to try and get off the train. I was worried in case there was a fire.
I just climbed out because it was quite, quite people helping each other off the train, sort of thing.
And what did you think when you saw the rest of the damage?
Oh, terrible, terrible. So lucky.
When the rescue teams announced that all those alive had now been taken off the train, this then became a recovery operation. The job to identify how many had got on the train, what numbers were unaccounted for. And it was to this scene that the Deputy Prime Minister came 6 hours after the disaster, promising a full report as soon as possible. The people who live in houses nearby were fortunate, wreckage finishing just feet from their doors. Some quickly dressed and were on the scene within minutes.
There were 1 or 2 people trapped, people with broken legs. There was a very brave lady with a bone showing through her leg who was perfectly calm and actually assisting another injured passenger.
Tonight it may seem as though the rail network is blighted, but this does appear to have been just an accident caused by a sequence of events which couldn't have been planned with such precision. Nevertheless, though, there's been an appalling loss of life. Colin Baker, ITN, Great Heck, North Yorkshire.
The mood of the nation was summed up by the Queen this afternoon in an unusually emotional statement from Buckingham Palace. She said the tragedy was particularly shocking, coming after the foot and mouth outbreak and the recent floods. And within the past hour, the Deputy Prime Minister John Prescott has arrived back at the Commons to speak about the crash.
I'm sure that all members of the House will wish to join me in expressing our deepest sympathy to the injured and the families and the friends of those who've lost their lives in this tragic and horrific accident. When I visited the scene, I saw for myself, yet again, the tremendous efforts of our emergency services and the many agencies involved in dealing with this accident. As always, they showed the true professionalism, the courage and efficiency in, yet again, the most difficult of circumstances.
For the very latest, let's go live now to our correspondent Mark Webster, where the crash happened at Great Heck near Selby. Mark, can you give us some sense of what's going on there now?
Well, beneath the arc lights down there and the twisted and tangled wreckage of the two trains behind me, specialist teams of police and fire officers are going through the debris, trying to make sure that all the 13 who died in those carriages are taken out. Now, their task is complicated by the fact that such was the ferocity of the collision that some of those carriages are damaged almost beyond recognition, but nonetheless it won't be until they're sure everybody is out that they will then bring in the heavy lifting gear and start to take those carriages away from the railway line.
And Mark, what will be the focus of the coming inquiry?
Well, an inquiry is of course already underway, but such are the extraordinary circumstances of this collision that the inquiry can really establish very little. All they can look at is the fact that a motorist drove off the road, off the motorway, and managed to cause a collision between two trains. The chances of this happening are almost unimaginable, but so are the consequences of what we can see behind us. I'll say, this is really such a dreadful collision, but is in absolutely extraordinary circumstances.
Mark Webster, thank you. As we've already heard, the final devastating impact was just the last link in a tragic chain of events that began with that Land Rover slipping off the motorway onto the rail tracks below. Shuri Ghosh examines exactly how it happened.
These pictures obtained by ITN show a GNER Express on the stretch of track where the crash happened. The passenger train would have been at full speed as it headed south. And this is the view the driver of the freight train would have had as it approached the same spot seconds from disaster. This is what's thought to have happened. A Land Rover towing a car on a trailer came off the M62 down the embankment and onto the high-speed railway line. The driver immediately phoned 999 to warn the emergency services. While he was on the phone, he saw the passenger train approaching, travelling at 125 miles an hour. He was helpless as it ploughed into the Land Rover. The train derailed but stayed upright for another half a mile. Seconds later, a coal train travelling at 75 miles an hour approached from the opposite direction. The trains hit almost head-on. It's believed that this caused most of the casualties. The Land Rover left the motorway near a bridge just before the start of crash barriers. They run for about 30 metres and are designed to prevent just such an accident. Investigators will focus on why they proved inadequate.
They will certainly want to look at the motorway protection systems that prevent vehicles coming over the side of motorways onto railway lines. They will want to look at the crashworthiness of the passenger vehicles and the effect upon that of the sideways hit of a freight train.
The investigation will take many months. Shuri Ghosh, ITN.
That's the end of this ITV News special. I'll be back with a roundup of all today's news at 10:30. I hope you'll join me there.